So far, the parts of the president's jobs bill are faring no better than the whole. First up, that $35 billion in state and local aid to keep cops, teachers, and firefighters employed, paid for by a millionaire surtax. It sounded like a great idea to 75% of Americans polled by Gallup. It died in the Senate this week. 2 Democrats, an independent, and every Republican voted against bringing it to the floor.
This is the third time in 3 years the president has asked us to bail out the states. How many more times? And how many more billions before someone realizes this is a very bad idea?
A Republican plan to repeal a withholding tax on government contractors did attract 10 Democratic senators, but that's not enough to pass a procedural hurdle, and the White House threatened to veto anyway because Republicans wanted to pay for it with $30 billion in spending cuts. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell is next. I wanted to talk to you about what's gone on so far with the jobs bill and what's to come, because Republicans helped in a not break a filibuster, if you will, in a procedural vote. You basically got rid of that jobs bill, which would have given money to the states designed to hire or retain firemen, policemen, and teachers. When we look at the polling, 75% of Americans supported that, and yet the Republicans were against it. So how do you justify that in your mind?
Well, Candy, I'm sure that Americans do, I certainly do, approve of firefighters and police. The question is whether the federal government ought to be raising taxes on 300,000 small businesses in order to send money down to bail out states for whom firefighters and police work. They are local and state employees. Look, we have a debt the size of our economy. That alone makes us look a lot like Greece. The question is whether the federal government can afford to be bailing out states. I think the answer is no. Second, it's important to note that the only thing bipartisan about these proposals has been the opposition to them. That a reasonable number of Democrats have opposed each of these measures as well for the same reason. Look, we are not going to get this economy going by continuing to shower money on the public sector. Unemployment among public sector workers in America is 1/2 what it is the private sector. We are not going to get this economy growing again by continuing to borrow and tax and spend and pump up the public sector. Washington is a boom town, Candy. It's the one town in America that's doing great.
But the fact is that when you do ask people about this surtax on millionaires, and small businesses, you put it, but millionaires in general, people support that when it comes to not just firemen, policemen, teachers, but also this infrastructure bill that's coming up, which you're also opposed to, as I understand it, which would help, put people back to work on roads and bridges and rebuilding and that sort of thing. And it seems to me that politicians are always talking about doing the will of the American people, and the Republican Party can be seen, at least politically, as going against that.
Yeah, these bills are designed on purpose not to pass. I mean, the president is deliberately trying to create an issue here. Look, the American people don't think, I'm sure, that it's a good idea. 4 out of 5 of these so-called millionaires are business owners. It's over 300,000 small businesses in our country that hire people. I don't think the American people think that raising taxes on business, small business, in the middle of this economic situation we find ourselves in is a particularly good idea. I think they'd like to see us begin to get our house in order. With regard to the private sector, what it needs is for us to quit spending, quit borrowing, quit over-regulating, and quit threatening to raise taxes. That's the reason the private sector is all clogged up. One final point. During the month of August, when the Congress was out of session, I spent about half the month in my state, and the rest, as Republican leader, I was around the country. Unprompted, everyone I asked who was in the private sector, whether it's a small business, a medium-sized business, or a large business, whether they were doing well, and only a few of them are doing well, they all said over-regulation was the single biggest problem. We have reached the point now, Candy, where this economic situation is being prolonged by the government itself.